Narayanam namaskritya naram chaiva narottamam devim saraswatim vyasam tato jayam mudhirayet nashtaprayeshva bhadreshu nityam bhagavata sevaya bhagavati uttama shloke bhaktir bhavati naishtiki. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Hare Krishna. Welcome to the start of another week where we are reading from Canto 4, Chapter 11, text number 10, entitled Swambhu Manu Advises Dhruva Maharaj. We'll just do a share screen for the shlokas. I'm sure everybody has got your books anyway. Make it a little bit bigger.
Yes, Prabhu.
Avash Prabhu, what was it again?
Prabhuji, it is control and plus.
Control and plus. That's it. See? Doing it after a long time. There you are. Is that visible? Better?
Yes, Prabhu. Readable now.
Nayam Margo Hi Sadhunam Rishi Keshanuvartinam Yad Atmanam Parag Griya Pashuvad Bhuta Vaishasam. Nayam Margo Hi Sadhunam Rishi Keshanuvartinam Yadatmanam Paragrihya Pashuvad Bhuta Vaishasam. Nayam Margo Hi Sadhunam Shikeshanuvartinam Yadatmanam Paragrihya Pashuvad Bhuta Vaishasam. Nayam Margo Hi Sadhunam Rishikeshanuvartinam Yadatmanam Paragrihya Pashuvad Bhuta Vaishasam. Somebody like to recite?
Hare Krishna.
Yes, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna. Dandavat Pranam, Prabhuji. Can I try?
Yes, Prabhu, please, please.
Nayam margahi sadhunam Rishikesho anuvartinam Yadatmanam paragriha Pashubhat bhuta vaishasham. Hare Krishna.
Somebody else?
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji, can I try?
Hare Krishna.
Nayam margo hi sadhunam rishi keshanuvartinam jadatmana paragriha pashubhat bhuta vaishasham. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Yes, please.
Nayam margo hi sadhunam rishikeshanuvartinam jadatmanam paragriyo pashuvat bhuta vaishasam.
Very nice. Okay.
Hare Krishna, I am trying Prabhu, Dandavat Pranam.
Yes,
Nayam Margo Hi Sadhunam Rishikeshanuvartinam Yad Atmanam Paragriha Pashubadbhuta Vaishasham. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Okay, so we'll go for the word for word. Na, never. I am this. Margaha, path. He, certainly. Sadhu Nam, of honest persons. Rishi Kesha, of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. anuvartinam, following the path, yat, which, atmanam, self, parak, the body, grihiya, thinking to be, pashuvat, like animals, bhuta, of living entities, vaishasam, killing. Translation and purport by Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Would somebody like to read the translation only? Somebody who's not recited the verse?
Can I try, Prabhu? I'll read that.
Please.
One should not accept the body as a self and thus, like the animals, kill the bodies of others. This is especially forbidden by saintly persons who follow the path of devotional service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Thank you.
Okay. And the purport, somebody else?
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, please accept my respectful obeisances. Can I read?
Please.
The words sadhunam, rishikesha, vanu, vartinam are very significant. Sadhu means a saintly person. But who is a saintly person? A saintly person is he who follows the path of rendering service unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Rishikesha. In the Narada Pancharatra, it is said, Rishikeshena, Rishikesha Sevanam Bhaktir Uchyate. The process of rendering favorable service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead with one's senses is called bhakti, or devotional service. Therefore, why should a person who's already engaged in the service of the Lord engage himself in personal sense gratification? Dhruv Maharaj is advised here by Lord Manu that since he is a pure servitor of the Lord, why should he unnecessarily engage like the animals in the bodily concept of life? An animal thinks that the body of another animal is his food. Therefore, in the bodily concept of life, one animal attacks another. A human being, especially one who is a devotee of the Lord, should not act like this. A sadhu, a saintly devotee, is not supposed to kill animals unnecessarily. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mataji. Om Jnana Timirandhasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Namah Vishnu Padaya Krishna Presthaya Bhutale Srimate Mahavishnu Goswami Niti Namine. Namah Vishnu Padaya Krishna Presthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namine. Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Desha Tarine Jai Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhara Srivashari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So, very nice and instructive verse today, as all the verses are from Srimad Bhagavatam. Nayam Margo hi sadhunam rishi keshanu vartinam yad atmanam paragrihya pashuvad bhuta vaishasam. So, Nayam Margo hi sadhunam. Here, so who's saying this? We have heard this chapter is all about the instructions of Swayambhuva Manu to Dhruva Maharaj. And from, I think, 7th text in this chapter till the end of the chapter, which is, I think, 35. So 7 to 35 are all instructions that Swayambhuva Manu is giving to Dhruva Maharaj. And it covers all the aspects that one need to understand about spiritual life. So in one way, we could say it is a condensed Bhagavad Gita. 7 to 35 in this chapter is a condensed form of Bhagavad Gita instructions. So how fortunate Dhruva Maharaj was to get this instruction again from Manu. Not that Dhruva Maharaj did not have that information. He was a devotee of the Lord. He knew this information. Just like Arjun, he knew the instruction. He knew all this information that Krishna gave him on the battlefield. He knew that from before. How do we know he knew that from before? In chapter 10, he says, he has already heard this message from Asita, Deval, Vyas, and all the great devotees of the Lord. He has already heard it. He already understood that Krishna is the supreme, but still he was put through this state of bewilderment by which Krishna could personally deliver to him these instructions. So we see that in the case of Dhruva Maharaj also, sometimes there are these questions about why he became angry and why he started killing, slaughtering rather. So there is always a reason many reasons actually, but there is always a reason why a devotee, so-called, performs actions which are not befitting a devotee. So the first thing Maharaj says is, first thing is to give us instructions that even though we are following a spiritual path, we are engaged in bhakti, it does not mean that we can lower our guard and become careless or become lazy. We have to constantly be alert. Even though we are following the right process, we are in the right direction, we have to always remain alert. Otherwise, we get into trouble. So this is one of the most important teachings right across all the pastimes in Bhagavatam. This is the primary instruction given to us through different personalities. So here, first thing when Manu, he comes in front of Dhruva Maharaj, he tells him what? In text 7, we've seen, he tells him, you stop. Why you are unnecessarily angry? He first analyzes. So even when somebody is giving instructions, it's very important to understand that who gives the instruction, to whom, what is the intent. Sometimes we become very enthusiastic to correct people, but we have to be in the right position and the right relationship with that person to be able to respectfully and with the right intent for their sole benefit, try to give some advice or something for their betterment. So this is very, very important. In Kali Yuga, we see that when somebody notices something not right, they start, gossiping, talking to others, and it just becomes a very, very negative atmosphere. So we have to be very careful. If we find something, it has to be addressed properly through the right authority, so that that person who is seemed to have not been doing the right work for a devotee or for a good person is corrected appropriately, or is at least there is an effort in that direction. So this is very important. That is number one, is the relationship and the level of authority that the person has to correct somebody. The second is the method. There is a method of correction. So first, just like when we are diseased or we have some problem health-wise, we go to the doctor, right? When we go to the doctor, does he just look at our face and write medicines? So medicine is just a solution, right? But the doctor does not just see our face and write solution. What does he do first? He diagnoses the problem. He highlights. So he tries to ask us questions. He tries to know more about us. And then he arrives at some conclusion of why this problem occurred in the first place, what we call diagnosis. So similarly, a person, a guide who is in the responsible position of guiding others, first understands or tries to diagnose the problem. What is the problem? And first thing he does is he stops, or he makes all effort to first stop the problem. And then he gives a solution that is long-term. So here also, if we see, there is a pattern that Swayambhuva Manu follows. It is not just random, 7 to 35 verses. You will see there is a pattern as we move along. We are in 10 today. As we go in the next few days, you'll notice there is a pattern in which Swayambhuva Manu is instructing Dhruva Maharaj. It's very interesting. So first thing he says is stop. So those of you who have got your Bhagavatam in front of you, you can quickly refer to text 7 where he says that it is not good to be unnecessarily angry. So he knew that Dhruva Maharaj is doing all of these things because he's angry. Then he says why you should not be angry. There is always a why in our scriptures. Sometimes, unfortunately, we don't focus on that aspect and we just take it as just some good instructions and we are not really bound to those instructions from our heart. So he says that if you don't give up your anger, it will pave the way for a hellish life. That's the first thing he says. Then he says that because you're angry, you are killing sinless people, sinless yakshas, who actually have got nothing to do with the killing of your brother. And if you do that, you are actually transgressing the laws of religion. Second. Then he says that I know why you are doing it, because you are showing your affection towards your brother who was killed. But just to take revenge on one, which is the duty of a Kshatriya, you cannot just mass slaughter the others. So he is diagnosing the problem that is going on in Dhruva Maharaj's mind. We say mind reader, right? A person who understands somebody understands not only what that person is thinking in his mind, but understands the psychophysical condition of that person. So he is establishing this first. And after 7, 8, 9, where he tells him what is actually happening and why, then from 10, he starts another track. And this is where he's giving philosophical advice. So if he give advice before diagnosis, it is like an arrow that has missed its mark. The effort is there, but it is. So the first 3 verses was diagnosis. Now the solution has been given slowly, drip feeding, so that the person is able to assimilate. Just like again, the doctors give us medicine, but sometimes the medicine takes a long time to work, when it's an oral pill or something. So when the patient is very critical, what happens? He is given, he's drip fed. It's straight into the veins. Why? So that the body is able to assimilate it faster and the effects of that medicine will show faster. So same thing with the solution that is provided by Manu is he's drip feeding this information slowly. So in this verse, he is mentioning Nayam Margo hi Sadhunam. So Marg is the path of the sadhus. Nayam Margo hi Sadhunam Rishi Keshanu Vartinam Yad Atmanam Paragrahiya Vashuvad Bhuta Vaishasha. So there are few important words that we could focus on. First, he uses the word sadhunam, margo hi sadhunam. So sadhu, if we see, Prabhupada has translated as what? Very interesting. He says sadhu, he doesn't say devotee or he's some spiritual person. He says sadhunam is an honest person. And honesty is something that is an integral part of a human being. It is, you don't expect somebody to be naturally dishonest, do you? You expect people to be honest, right? But now, in the current atmosphere that we live in, we ask, especially when we want to do some dealings with somebody or get some work done through somebody, we ask the reference that we have got, is he honest? Will he be able to do the job properly? We've come to such a point. So Sadhunam is an honest person. Then the second line is very important. Rishi Keshanu Vartinam, as Prabhupada writes in the purport. Rishikesha is the Supreme Lord, and Anuvartinam is following the path. Anu. So who the person who follows the path of religion of the Supreme Lord, what happens to such a person? So when an honest person is trying to follow the instructions, trying to move in the path given by the Supreme Lord himself, then what happens? Then he should not think that the body is the self. Atmanam paragriya. Griha is thinking and parak is body. So he should not think the body to be Atma. And he should not unnecessarily, pashuvad. So he should not unnecessarily engage in the killing of animals. Although we see from here, Dhruva Maharaj did not really kill animals. Of course, Yakshas, as Maharaj was mentioning the other day, and Rakshasas, they are cousins. And they are usually, there is signs of envy amongst them. But still, they are a living entity. So why should we, why should they have to be told, or why is it mentioned here that they should not kill the bodies of others like animals? Because some people, by their behavior, they display whether they are actually living beings, means humans, or subhumans, or animals. So here it is said, one should not accept the body of the self, accept the body as the self, and like animals, start killing the bodies of others. Because that's what Dhruva Maharaj was doing. So he gave him this first he said, don't do it. And then he says that if you are accepting the body as self, means you do not have the conception of the body and the self. Only such a person who does not have that conception, he is only concerned with the body. And he thinks about me and mine, you, yours, and somebody else's, and develops these qualities of enviousness between one another living entity. And because of that enviousness, he tries to harm others. He tries to destroy others. But this point in the translation Prabhupada writes is forbidden. By whom? By honest, saintly people who follow the path. How do you know that they are saintly? How do you know that they are sadhu? We can consider somebody is sadhu if the person is sincerely following the path of devotional service, obviously to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. When we say devotional service, it is assumed that it has to be done to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Otherwise, it is not devotional service. It may be just service. So this is something that's very, very important. It is also another way of ascertaining, sometimes we read the Bhagavad Gita, chapter 2, which is all about who are we? We are spirit souls. This is the first primary instruction in the Bhagavad Gita. So we understand, we read it, we try and make some sense out of it and say, yeah, that's right, I'm not body. But are we really trying an effort to come out of the bodily concept? Are we really trying consciously, I'm saying? And if we have come out, how do we know that we are in the bodily consciousness or we are not? So two things they will tell us, meaning it is just like, we are looking into the mirror. We don't have to really ask somebody. If we explore our own heart, we'll get to know. If we judge ourselves with two things. First, when we go through miseries in our own life, or something that it doesn't go to our expectation, we feel very bad about it, we are very shattered about it. What happens? Are we lamenting? Everybody naturally will lament. Everybody will become upset. That is natural. We have got a heart, we've got a human body, we've got a mind, we've got our senses. and all the situation that happens around us will definitely have an impact. In fact, Prabhupada says if it doesn't have an impact, you're not a human being, you're a stone. So emotions have to be there and they should be expressed. But if somebody is lamenting over it for days together, every day keeps on going, sometimes we meet people, you ask them, oh, how are you? And I said, oh, not bad. Like today's weather, when we speak to somebody in the office, they say, how are you? Oh, as bad as the weather. I mean, would you like to really talk to such people on a Monday morning? You're ready for the week. You're all enthusiastic. And then on the other side, hello. You just that negativity, you don't want that to rub that negativity on you. And we become so surcharged in the morning with our chanting, with our Mangalarti, and we are so positive, we are so surcharged. Doesn't matter how the situation is around us. We don't want to associate with such people. Of course, sometimes we have to talk to them, but I'm just saying, giving an example. So for us, if the misery is keeping us in a lamentable state of mind for days together, for months, that means we have not yet come out of this bodily concept. Of course, I'm not saying we have come out completely. We will always be in some form of bodily concept till we are in this material world, unless we have come to that level of purification. But we should also be conscious of the self, of the soul. So slowly, this bodily concept has to reduce. If we are not lamenting for a long time, that means our bodily concept has slowly reduced because of the potency of the holy name, because of our engagement in devotional service. That's number one. Number two is the instruction from this verse. And what is this verse? That somebody, a sadhu who is following devotional service, he will never unnecessarily, like animals, kill others. So then you might say, okay, we're not like Dhruva Maharaj, or we don't take a gun or a knife outside and we keep killing people, do we? No, we don't. But we kill people
by words,
consciously or unconsciously, all the time. Yeah, like just somebody mentioned. We kill people by a weapon that is more powerful than a knife or a gun, or all these mystic weapons that Dhruva Maharaj used. And that is, we can kill people with our mind, with our body, and with our words. Of course, like I said, we don't intend to kill somebody with our body or kill their body, which is not through weapons. But we start slowly killing people with our mind. That's where the seed of violence is born. And why is it born? Because of envy. We cannot tolerate somebody who has either not met our expectations, or who we feel is not doing something right, or who has got better success, better popularity, better prosperity than us. Seed of envy enters our mind. And then the mind starts committing violence towards that person without our knowledge. And then when the mind has committed all its violence, what is the result of that violence? It comes to the words. The words are always looking for an opportunity to fire that bullet. And when we get the opportunity, we don't fire with a pistol. You know how we fire with? We fire with AK-47. I don't know if there's a more special gun nowadays, but we knew that AK-47 is, you just press the trigger once and the whole cartridge finishes. So that is how we kill with our tongue. So this violence is not just a bodily violence. This violence is also about mind and words. And that is why if you see in Bhagavad Gita, chapter 17. There are three austerities that Krishna mentions: austerity of the body, austerity of the mind, and austerity of the speech. Three austerities mentioned. Why? Because we commit violence with these three weapons that we have got. And if we do not practice austerities, then by default, we will commit violence. We will kill. That is the nature of this material world. That is the nature of Kali Yuga today. If we do not practice austerity, doesn't matter how good you are, doesn't matter how pious you are, doesn't matter where you belong from. It is that atmosphere is such that we are trained through association with others to constantly kill. We have heard the word backbiting, right? What is backbiting? We have heard the word politics. What does that mean? We have heard the word he doesn't like me. Yeah. Whether it's a personal relationship or professional relationship. What does these terms they mean? They basically mean that I'm being murdered by somebody else. They don't like me. They want to destroy me. Means what? Somebody is committing violence against somebody. And just like Prabhupada mentions, there are these 4 defects in human beings, MICS. One of the faults is what? Cheating propensity, right? And when we discuss those 4 things, everybody thinks, I don't cheat anybody. But we forget, if you don't cheat, somebody will cheat you. That is certain. And when somebody cheats you, how do you react? We do not have any material information to react appropriately. But we get that from the Shastras. So just like cheating, either you are cheating or you get cheated. Similarly, in terms of the killing, either you kill or somebody will kill you. You cannot escape. There is no way you can escape. Of course, because we're in a society and we follow certain laws, and we don't want to engage in bodily violence. Of course, we understand domestic violence is going up throughout the world, not just in any particular country. But leaving that aside, there is constantly violence being committed with the mind, with the words. So when we evaluate ourselves, we have to think that we are chanting, we are reading, we are doing devotional service. But are we committing violence knowingly or unknowingly with our mind, and most importantly, with our words? And we will continue to commit offenses and kill unless we follow these austerities, right? So what is mentioned here? I know everybody's read this, but I just thought I'll read just the translation of these 3 austerities that Krishna gives us in Bhagavad Gita. If you have the Bhagavad Gita handy, please open chapter 17, text 14, 15, and 16. Right. So it says, Deva Dvija Guru Pragya Pujanam Shauchamarjavam Brahmacharyam Ahimsacha Shariram Tapa Uchate. So austerity of the body consists of worship of the Supreme Lord, the Brahmanas, spiritual master, superiors like father and mother, cleanliness, simplicity, celibacy, and non-violence. So these are very, very important. So even to remain clean and to have a clean environment is an austerity. And what do you mean by austerity? It is something that the soul wants, but the mind provides reason not to do it. Because soul is Satchidanand, soul is always clean, pure, remains. But somehow or the other, based on the association we keep, we don't want, we become lazy based on the association we keep. So even remaining clean, even remaining simple becomes an austerity. And you see the last one, non-violence. That's how the body, non-violence, Prabhupada mentions, Krishna says, is a part of austerity. Means what? If you do not practice austerity, what is going to happen? You will definitely commit violence, even on a bodily level. What to talk about mind and words? Then he says, Anudvegakaram vakyam satyam priyahitam chayat swadhyayabhyasanam chaiva vanmayam tapa uchyate. So austerity of speech consists of speaking words that are truthful, pleasing, beneficial, not agitating to others, and regularly reciting Vedic literature. Right? And that is the reason Prabhupada insisted the sincere practitioners of bhakti to read his books, to have classes every day, to have discussions among devotees every day. Why? So that we can regularly recite and study Vedic literature, primarily. Then what happens? Naturally, we focus, when we say something, we want to ensure it is truthful, we want to ensure it is pleasing, we want to ensure it's beneficial for that person that we are discussing with, and it should not, most importantly, anudvega, it should not make that person agitate. And in Kali Yuga, we see the more you agitate somebody, the more you feel, oh, I've done something. As if agitating somebody becomes a benchmark for some success, or to say that, oh, you've defeated somebody in argument or pointed out their deficiencies. No, scriptures don't say that. And then the last one, violence with the mind. Mana prasada samyatvam maunam atma vinigraha bhava samshuddhirityetat apomana samuchyate. Satisfaction, simplicity, gravity, self-control, purification of one's existence are austerity of the mind. Forget the others. If we just focus on the first one, mana prasada. Like we are always wanting Krishna prasad, right? So what is Krishna prasad? Of course, the prasad we eat, and all, it is not just the prasad, but everything that Krishna gives us, our resources, the money, the house, everything that is comes to us, we are able to acquire, is actually Krishna prasad. And that is the conception, or that is the thinking of a devotee. Ishavasyam idam sarvam. We know it's part of our quota. So if we know it is part of our quota and Krishna is there to take care of us, automatically we will become satisfied. And the prasad of the Lord is in sync with the mana. So the mana becomes, the mana prasad is in line with Krishna prasad. So mana prasadaha, this very important word here, is a satisfaction of the mind. With whatever we have got, are we feeling satisfied? If we feel satisfied, the mind will automatically be under control in a way that it should be. So just to remain satisfied is also considered as an austerity of the mind. So if we do not have austerity of body, austerity of mind, austerity of speech, how can we engage in bhakti? And if we cannot engage in bhakti appropriately, how can we become a pure servitor of the Lord? We are not pure, but we are on the path to become pure. Why? So that we can serve the Lord better, based on the level of our purity. So if we do not practice these austerities, if we do not engage in devotional service consciously, we will by default commit violence. We will attack another living entity, whether it's somebody known to us or unknown to us, and we will become just like Dhruv Maharaj. We think, oh, why Dhruv Maharaj got angry? What about us? We are constantly killing people. Sometimes even we see that somebody who so-called commits something wrong, we try and correct that person. And when we see that that person belongs to a particular community, right, we start having hatred against the whole community, right? Sometimes, have you noticed that? Some people, And in fact, even sometimes we might have done it. So it is exactly like Dhruv Maharaj, that just to kill one yaksha, to take revenge against one yaksha, he was trying to annihilate the entire race. And sometimes we may not kill the people, but we have this wrong conception in our mind that all these people are bad, and I don't want to have anything to do with these people. So this is very, very important. And it is not befitting a person who is trying to be a devotee of the Lord. It is complete irreligion. And that is exactly the information Manu is trying to give to Maharaj. So first is to understand that are we in the bodily concept of life or not? Are we in the right direction? By measuring us against these two things. How we are able to take the miseries and how we are able to control our mind, body, and words by practicing austerities, so that by default we do not commit these violence. And then we can aspire to become a good devotee. Bhagavatam, third chapter, third canto, 25-21, talks about the symptoms of a sadhu. Titikshava karunikaha, suridam sarvadehinam, ajata shatravah santaha, sadhava sadhu bhushana. Sadhu bhushan means it's an ornament of a devotee. What is the ornament of a devotee? What is the opulence of a devotee? What is the greatness of a devotee? Not his externals, not how he talks, not how he presents himself. What is the true ornament of a devotee? First, how tolerant he is, titikshava. Second, how merciful he is by his actions, by his words, by his behavior. Third, suridam sarva dehinam. He becomes a well-wisher of all living entities, not just human beings. All living entities. Then, ajataha shatrava, that he, ajat shatru, Yudhishthira was called, means what? He does not have any enemies. He does not have envy against anybody. He's completely non-envious. And shatrava shantaha. He is shanta, he's peaceful, because he is not envious, because he does not have any enemies. He's not constantly thinking that, oh, who's going to attack me? What's going to happen? What's going to happen? And we lose our peace because of that. We are not satisfied. We lose our peace. Why? We don't have the information. So sadhu is somebody who's peaceful. And sadhava. Sadhu comes from the word sadhava. Sadhava is who follows scriptural injunctions. So if you have all these qualities, titikshava, karunika, suridam, sarva dehinam, but you don't have the sadhava, you're not following these things as per regulations, one day by default you will commit violence with at least mind and words, if not body. So this is not something that is optional. It is something that is mandatory. So when we engage in bhakti, we are actually engaging our mind and body and words to commit some austerity, tapa. The first information that Brahma got was tapa. And it is the same thing that Manu is trying to impress upon Dhruv Maharaj in this verse. And as we have discussed, and many other speakers have discussed in the past, is Dhruv Maharaj had the major advantage, not only of seeing the Lord, not only of having information, but he had a very good mentor and guide. So if we have a good mentor with whom we have got a very good relationship, who we know is only going to work for my benefit, who's going to correct me for my benefit, we can be rest assured that our journey and our destination in spiritual life is guaranteed. Of course, the instructions come from Prabhupada, but how to implement that instruction in our personal life and tailor make it for us, we need a guide. We need a local guide, or we need an accessible guide who we can interact with any time that we need. And that is something Dhruv Maharaj had. In fact, that is something Arjun had. That is something Parikshit Maharaj had. So when he was in trouble, when he was experiencing that pain, when all that incident happened about Shamik Rishi and all that. Shukdev Goswami appeared. Even Prithu Maharaj, as we will see later part of Bhagavatam, the next katha is Prithu Maharaj, after Dhruv Maharaj's story. It's the same thing. Of course, the context was a bit different, but the point is he was guided, he was mentored by Brahma himself. So one thing is to follow, another thing is to be guided. And if you have the right guide, that is the best association. And that's why the word here mentioned is Rishi Kenanu Vartana. That we follow the instructions of Rishikesh and follow his path. How? By associating with the right mentor, right spiritual guide in our life on a day-to-day basis. Take instructions from that person, follow bhakti in taking instructions from that person, and ultimately please the Lord. And that is the first point that here Manu is slowly trying to impress upon Dhruv Maharaj. So two things to check with us, to check on our own like a checklist. How are miseries, how are we reacting to miseries? Secondly, are we practicing enough austerities to ensure we don't commit violence with our mind, body, and words? And whether we are having a good association with a mentor and guide. So these are the three takeaway points from this verse in Srimad Bhagavatam. And if we are following this, we not only please Guru, we please Srila Prabhupada, and ultimately we please Radharani and Sri Sri Radha Giridhari. Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Nitai Gaur Premanande. Thank you very much. If there's any question or somebody would like to add to what I've mentioned.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, Dandavat Pranam.
Hare Krishna Prabhu.
The morning became full of ecstasis. We don't know where to keep all this. It's so nice, so much information is fulfilled. The morning is now beautiful. Though outside is very bad, the mind is happy now. Roger, just a question. You mentioned about Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 3. Will you please repeat that text? I could not follow that.
For the verse, 3:25-21. It's a very, very important verse.
Thank you, Prabhuji.
Okay, thank you, Hare Krishna. Okay, anybody else?
Thanks, Prabhu.
Prabhu.
Thanks for a very nice class and giving a very broad explanation of the term violence. Normally, we take violence as very physical, but beyond that is committing violence on mental platform. So, and there's another broader explanation of violence that Prabhupada gives in the Bhagavad Gita. He says violence means not giving Krishna consciousness to the living entities.
Yes, thank you.
Very, there is such a broad explanation of violence. We normally think violence is physical or mental, but Prabhupada is surpassing these barriers and giving all. Once we don't give this Krishna consciousness, then you welcome you. Yes, thank you. Thank you, Prabhu.
Okay, Prabhuji. Thank you very much. There's no other comments. We can conclude.
Anybody else got any comments, reflections? We still got a few minutes.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, Dandavat Pranam.
Krishna Prabhu.
Hare Krishna. Just to say thank you for that. You have given a very nice definition of violence as Prabhupada has explained. And I'm just reminding, it came to my mind one of the discussion Prabhupada had in Australia. And someone was telling him, you are Krishna conscious people at that, but there are some other people who are very good in that social level. They're mindly, mentally very good. But and so why it is necessary? The Prabhupada told him that unless one is on the spiritual level, he is beyond the material conception. He cannot be a good person in the real sense. He wanted a broader definition of that also. And that just reminds me of that interview that you have supplemented everything in a nice way. That now the picture becomes very clear to us that why a person, unless he is in Krishna consciousness, he is always living at a lower level, is thinking at a lower level. So he cannot be he cannot be Shurida Sarvabhutanam. He cannot be. He will always be partial because his conception of Sarvabhutanam is limited unless he is Krishna conscious. Thank you, Prabhuji, for
Correct.
bringing that point and explaining it. And that has only supplemented the idea I've heard from Prabhupada in that way. Just that point has been so much clarified that one should have no doubt that unless a person is Krishna conscious really, he cannot be that way good. He cannot be Shurida Sarvabhutana. Thank you, Prabhu.
Thank you very much. Thank you for adding that.
Okay, there's don't seem to be many more comments. We're in here. His Grace Sri Krishna Prabhu ki jai. Shri Prabhupada jai. Go.
Very much.
Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda ki jai.